My jealous younger brother looked right at me in the middle of the courtroom and said, "Get ready to be embarrassed in front of everyone." My parents smiled with happiness and added, "We want to see the look on your face when you lose." I sat there completely quiet in the crowded Dallas bankruptcy court. Local newspaper reporters were writing fast. Camera flashes were going off. The air felt so tense it was hard to breathe. Then the judge stopped, looked up, and asked one question that made my brother go completely silent. My parents' smiles disappeared instantly, and their lawyer started shaking. A secret about me finally came out. I, Morgan Mitchell, 35 years old, was sitting at the table where the person being accused sits in this very public hearing in downtown Dallas. My hand stayed steady on the cool wooden table, even though I felt super nervous inside. This wasn't just any bankruptcy case. It was a show my family had planned to ruin my reputation in front of the whole city. Thank you so much for listening to this story of betrayal and justice. I would love to know where you're listening from today. Are you in your car driving to work, at the office during break time, or relaxing at home? Drop it in the comments below so we can connect and share these stories together. And if you're already hooked, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit that notification bell. It really helps these real-life stories reach more people just like you. Let's keep going. I looked right at Trevor the moment he said those words, feeling the whispers move through the crowded courtroom like a wave. Across the aisle, my family sat at the table for the people who were suing, putting on their best act. My father, Fred Ellis, sat with that stiff posture he always used in business meetings. His face showed quiet disappointment that could have won acting awards. Next to him, my mother Alice wiped at her eyes with a tissue in slow, careful movements, as if every tear was carefully timed for the biggest effect. And Trevor, my younger brother, leaned forward just enough to look confident. That same proud look on his face told everyone in the room he had already won. The gallery was full. Local reporters from the Dallas Morning News and a couple of business magazines filled the back rows. Their pens moved fast. A few familiar faces from the Highland Park social group sat scattered among strangers. Everyone came to watch the drama of a well-known real estate family sharing its problems in federal bankruptcy court. The air buzzed with excitement, the kind that comes when people smell a scandal involving money and family members. My lawyer, Valerie Hayes, sat beside me calmly, arranging a few folders on our table. She didn't look nervous. Her dark suit was sharp. Her face was focused, like she had seen this kind of show before and knew exactly how to handle it. The bailiff called the room to attention as Judge Harlan Brooks walked in and sat down. He was in his late 60s with a serious face that showed he didn't have much patience for drama. He had many cases to hear, and a family bankruptcy case involving one of Dallas's well-known real estate names was probably not how he wanted to spend his morning. Once we were seated, Gregory Caldwell, their lawyer, the kind who charged lots of money to make problems disappear for wealthy clients, stood up. He buttoned his jacket with a practiced motion and spoke to the judge in a deep, carrying voice. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a heartbreaking family matter. My client, Trevor Ellis, gave a personal loan of $3 million to his sister, the debtor Morgan Mitchell, to try to save her company, Pinnacle Properties Group, from total failure. This money was meant to cover important building costs and prevent the loss of ongoing projects." He paused for effect, letting the number sink in. $3 million. To most people in the room, it sounded like a fortune. To my family, it was just another tool. Caldwell continued, walking slowly. The agreement was simple. The money was supposed to help the business, which builds luxury condos and commercial buildings. But evidence will show that the debtor spent this money on risky projects, buying too much land for speculation and adding luxury features that the market couldn't support. Pinnacle Properties Group is now deeply broke with unpaid contractors, stopped projects, and no realistic way to recover. A low murmur spread through the gallery. Reporters wrote faster. I felt the weight of every stare on the back of my neck. On the surface, Pinnacle had hit some rough patches. Delayed permits, rising costs for materials, a couple of deals that fell through when the market slowed down. But we had successes too. 2 completed high-end condo towers in uptown Dallas that were completely sold out, bringing in solid money, and several mixed-use projects in the works with committed investors. It wasn't the sinking ship they described. My mother let out a soft, perfectly timed sigh. My father placed a hand on her arm, looking like the picture of supportive sadness. Trevor kept his eyes on me, that confident look never changing. Caldwell finished his opening. We are asking the court to recognize this debt is real, pierce the corporate veil if necessary, and give relief to the creditor who acted out of family loyalty only to be left with big losses. The room fell quiet, heavy with judgment. Headlines were already forming in those reporters' minds. Ellis family daughter wastes brother's investment in failing real estate empire. Judge Brooks adjusted his glasses and turned toward our table. Ms. Hayes, does the defense wish to make an opening statement? Valerie stood without big movements. Her voice was clear and steady, cutting through the heavy air. Briefly, Your Honor. The story presented is emotionally powerful and has a very large dollar amount, but it lacks one important thing: accuracy. She didn't walk around or make dramatic gestures. She just stood there, calm and direct. We will show that no such loan ever happened. That Pinnacle Properties Group is far from the failing business described, with active money-making developments and secured partnerships, and that this petition is not about getting back a debt. It's about something far less noble. She sat down. The whisper started again, louder this time. A few reporters looked at each other. My father's posture stiffened just a little. Trevor's confident look faltered for the first time, replaced by a quick glance at Caldwell. The judge looked through the file in front of him, his face neutral but paying attention. The real fight hadn't even started yet, but the room already felt different, like the script my family had written was about to hit its first unexpected twist. To understand why Trevor was jealous enough to drag me into this public courtroom battle, it all went back to those family dinners in our Highland Park home, the kind where the air smelled of polished silver and roasted meat, but the conversation always had a sharp edge. We grew up in one of those big houses on quiet streets lined with old oak trees, where success was measured by how well you kept up the family name in Dallas real estate circles. My father ran the Ellis Group's commercial property division, handling large office leases and retail centers for old money families that had been around for generations. It was steady, predictable work, shaking hands at the club, closing deals during golf games, keeping the business growing without too much risk. Trevor fit perfectly into that world from an early age. He had the charm, the easy smile, the ability to remember names and make people feel important. Everyone assumed he would step in one day and take over, the natural heir, carrying on the legacy. I was different. While Trevor was out networking with Dad's partners, I was studying market trends, city development reports, and luxury design magazines. I saw opportunity in high-end residential projects, condos with rooftop features, mixed-use buildings that blended living and shopping in ways the old guard hadn't tried yet. To me, it wasn't gambling. It was the future of Dallas as the city kept growing. One Sunday evening stands out clearly. We were at the long dining table. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier. I had prepared a simple presentation on my laptop, projections for a luxury condo tower in Uptown targeting young professionals moving into the area. I talked about people interested in buying before construction, building timelines, and possible returns that were better than traditional commercial leases. When I finished, the silence stretched just long enough to feel uncomfortable. My father set down his fork and looked at me with that familiar mix of amusement and dismissal. Morgan, this sounds like a dangerous game, not a business for a young woman in our family. Stick to something stable. We manage properties. We don't chase trendy developments that could fail with the next market dip. My mother nodded along, adjusting her necklace. Exactly. It's risky enough without adding all those fancy features. What if buyers don't show up? Trevor leaned back in his chair, smirking. Yes, sis. Sounds more like playing developer than actually building something solid. Leave the real deals to people who know the market. Their words landed like they always did, casual, offhand, but cutting deep. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. They saw my ideas as silly, something a daughter might play around with before settling into a more appropriate role, maybe helping with charity events or supporting Trevor's rise. But in that moment, as the criticism hung in the air, I felt a gentle squeeze on my hand under the table. My grandmother, Eleanor, my father's mother who lived in a smaller house on the same street, had been listening quietly as usual. She didn't say much at these dinners, but her eyes missed nothing. She leaned close and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Don't let them dim your fire, dear. You've got the vision they lack. Those small encouragements from Grandma Eleanor were rare but powerful. She had seen the business change over decades and believed in adapting, even if her son didn't. Her quiet support kept me going when the rest of the table made me feel like an outsider in my own home. By the end of that year, the pattern was clear. Every time I brought up a new idea, sustainable features for modern buyers, partnerships with architects pushing boundaries, the response was the same. Polite smiles hiding doubt, suggestions I consider a position in the family firm's marketing or administration. So I stopped sharing. The rejection wasn't loud arguments. It was constant wearing down, the kind that eats away at you over time. Trevor thrived in their approval, soaking it up like it was his birthright. I realized if I wanted to build something real, I had to do it without their support or their interference. So I left. I packed my things one weekend when everyone was at a charity event, rented a tiny office space downtown, and started Pinnacle Properties Group with savings and a small business loan. No family money, no safety net, just me, a desk, and the belief that Dallas was ready for the kind of luxury developments I imagined. Those early days were all about proving I could stand on my own. That late evening, as I was reviewing the final redevelopment blueprints at my desk, my phone buzzed with an email from the court server. The subject line made my blood run cold. Involuntary bankruptcy petition filed. Pinnacle Properties Group, debtor Morgan Mitchell. I opened the attachment and read through it in disbelief. Trevor had started the process, claiming a $3 million personal loan he said he gave me to rescue the company from collapse. The document detailed how the money was meant for important project costs, but I had supposedly mismanaged it into high-risk projects, leaving Pinnacle broke with growing debts and stopped developments. The claims twisted facts I knew very well. They made unpaid bills look bigger by including projected expenses as immediate debts. They ignored closed sales from completed towers that had brought in millions over the last few months. It was a carefully made picture of failure designed to force court involvement before I could respond. I immediately sent the filing to Valerie Hayes. She responded within minutes. "We need to meet tomorrow morning. Bring every financial summary you have." The next day, I arrived at her firm early. The petition was printed and marked up in my folder. Valerie's conference room looked out over downtown Dallas, but the view did nothing to calm the knot in my stomach. We spread documents across the table, bank statements, investor reports, audited financial records, project ledgers. She went through the petition carefully, her pen marking things that didn't add up. The supposed loan date falls during your strongest cash position from the uptown closings. No money coming in matches the amount, and the attached agreement is missing standard sections for collateral or interest buildup. For $3 million between siblings, that's suspiciously loose. We dug deeper. The petition mentioned specific vendor disputes and permit delays that weren't public knowledge, numbers pulled directly from internal forecasts I'd shared only with senior staff. This level of detail doesn't come from outside research, Valerie noted. Someone with access is helping them. Blake Harlan came to mind again. He'd been involved in putting together those exact forecasts for board presentations. His recent questions about backup funds now felt less innocent. We planned out the defense strategy step by step. First, gather complete proof that we're not broke. Current balance sheets showing healthy reserves, money coming in from active pre-sales, committed funding letters from partners. Second, demand discovery on their side. Subpoena Trevor's personal and business accounts for any trace of the transfer. Valerie outlined timelines. We file a motion to dismiss early, highlighting the absence of verifiable debt, attach forensic summaries showing no matching transactions. If they can't produce evidence of the loan, the case falls apart. We discussed risks. A long court case could scare investors, delay permits, damage relationships with contractors. But rushing to settle would make their story seem true. We fight clean and hard, Valerie said. Expose the gaps, force them to prove what they claim. By afternoon, we had a clear plan. Gather statements from key partners confirming no family involvement in funding. Prepare expert reports breaking down cash flow. Review every communication for anything that could be twisted. Driving back, the suspicion about inside help grew stronger. The petition's precision felt too targeted. How else could Trevor know exact figures from drafts, not yet finalized? The question stayed with me as I pulled into the office garage. Answers would come, but first we had to build an unbreakable shield. The real work was just beginning. The following days passed under constant time pressure and closed-door meetings at Pinnacle. I kept my routine as normal as possible on the surface, arriving early, leading the daily meetings, reviewing site photos from contractors. But inside, I was watching everyone with new intensity. The office had always felt like a second home, a place where the team shared coffee and celebrated wins. Now it carried a quiet strain. People glanced up when I walked past. Conversations paused just a little too long. The lawsuit rumors had spread, and no one knew quite what to say. Blake sat at his usual spot near the window, managing timelines on his 2 computer screens. He had been reliable from day one, always the first to volunteer for extra reports, quick with solutions when delays popped up. That's why the small changes caught my attention. He started asking more questions about backup funds for the redevelopment phase, things he normally wouldn't need for his job. He printed more documents than usual, taking them to the copier alone. I began tracking quietly, saved copies of emails he sent asking for detailed cash flow projections, wrote down times when he accessed shared computer files late at night. Valerie's assistant helped pull anonymous logs showing unusual activity on files related to the city partnership bid. The weight pressed harder each day. Vendors called checking payment status, worried about industry talk. Partners emailed for updates on stability. I answered with calm reassurances while my mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Sleep became broken, thoughts circling around who and why. To confirm without showing my hand, I introduced a believable but false detail during a leadership call. I mentioned preparing backup documents for the redevelopment assets, including off-site storage at a new place we'd secured in Florida. It sounded like standard risk management, nothing alarming, just smart planning given the legal noise. The group accepted it without pushback. Notes were taken. The topic moved on to permitting updates. 48 hours later, Valerie called. They just filed an emergency motion for asset protection. Read paragraph 7. I opened the attachment. There it was, a request to prevent removal or transfer of important project materials to the Florida facility while the court reviewed things. The words hit like ice water. That exact phrase had come from my mouth in the call. No public record mentioned Florida. Only the people on that call knew. Valerie, and I reviewed it immediately. The timing seals it, she said. They acted too fast for anything but a direct feed. We built the case carefully, saved the call recording with timestamps, collected lists showing who received the follow-up summary, pulled computer data on file views matching the motion's language, gathered statements from other people on the call confirming they hadn't discussed it with anyone outside. The office tension grew thicker. Team members sensed the extra careful questions I asked, the locked cabinet I started using. I hated the distrust it created, but protecting years of work mattered more. Blake's behavior changed further. He arrived earlier, left later, avoided eye contact during check-ins. Once I caught him closing a browser tab quickly when I approached. By midweek, the evidence stack was clear. Direct connection between internal access and their filings. The Florida reference was the proof. No coincidence could explain it. We organized everything into exhibits, logs, emails, motion comparisons, statements. Valerie prepared extra filings to show the pattern without revealing all our cards yet. The hearing was getting closer, the pressure peaking, but the proof felt solid in my hands for the first time. The pieces had fallen into place. The morning of the hearing, the Dallas sun beat down harshly as I walked into the crowded federal courthouse. The gallery was packed tighter than I expected. Local business reporters filled several rows, notebooks ready. Colleagues from the real estate community sat scattered among curious watchers. Camera flashes had stopped at security, but phones were out capturing the scene for social media. Valerie walked beside me. Her briefcase was organized with our exhibits. We took our places at the defense table. Across the aisle, my family sat composed. My father, Fred, kept his usual upright posture, face showing nothing. My mother, Alice, held a tissue, eyes already glistening. Trevor leaned back slightly, arms crossed, that familiar air of certainty about him. Gregory, Caldwell, stood as soon as the judge allowed openings to conclude. He recapped the petition smoothly, emphasizing the supposed $3 million loan and Pinnacle's supposed financial trouble. He painted a picture of bad management, stopped projects, and creditors at risk, urging immediate relief to protect the claimed debt. The room listened carefully. A few heads nodded in the gallery. My father's face stayed emotionless, but I caught the slight tightening of his jaw. Valerie stayed seated for now, waiting for our turn. The judge listened without interrupting, flipping through the pre-filed documents occasionally. When Gregory finished and sat down, Judge Harlan Brooks leaned forward, removing his reading glasses slowly. He looked through a page in the binder in front of him, forehead wrinkling as if confirming something he'd noticed earlier. "Counsel," he said, voice calm but carrying authority through the microphone. "Before we move to the defense, I have a question based on the papers already in the record." The room went completely quiet. Gregory half stood, expecting something. Judge Brooks spoke to me directly. "Ms. Mitchell is Pinnacle Properties Group, currently the lead developer in a public-private partnership with the state of Texas for the redevelopment of the old Riverfront District downtown, an agreement valued at more than $100 million over 5 years." The question landed like a thunderclap. Whispers exploded immediately. Reporters typed furiously. My father's posture stiffened noticeably. Trevor's, arms uncrossed. His face lost color. I stood, keeping my voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor. We were awarded the contract 6 months ago after a competitive bid process. Phase 1 funding is already in place, with construction set to begin next quarter." The judge nodded, turning to Gregory. "Mr. Caldwell, your petition describes the debtor's company as broke and without workable projects. Yet the pre-filed exhibits include public notices of this major partnership. How do you explain seeking to take control of a company actively working on a state-backed development of this scale?" Gregory stood, composure cracking for the first time. "Your Honor, our information shows the project is at risk due to the debtor's financial instability." The judge cut him off gently but firmly. "Instability shown by a loan your client cannot document with any transfer record?" Valerie stood. "Your Honor, if I may address the court's concern." The judge motioned her forward. She presented our prepared exhibits calmly. First, the pattern of unauthorized access, logs showing internal files viewed at odd times, matching exactly with details in their filings. Then the Florida reference, side-by-side slides, our internal backup note versus their emergency motion language. This information was shared only in a limited management call. Its appearance in the plaintiff's filing proves unauthorized sharing from inside Pinnacle. Gasps moved through the gallery. Trevor's face went pale. My mother wiped faster at her eyes, but the tears looked different now. The judge's face hardened as Valerie continued. "Separate from the leak, our financial summaries showed strong reserves, completed sales revenue, and secured funding streams. The supposed loan had no matching transaction in any account. But the biggest reveal came when Valerie showed forensic analysis of the family's own holdings. Your Honor, the timing of this petition lines up with big shortfalls in the Ellis Group's commercial portfolio, losses from an over-leveraged retail center project that went bad last year. My father's head snapped up. The room went dead silent. Valerie laid out the numbers neutrally, public records and subpoenaed summaries, showing the hole my father had tried to quietly fill. The bankruptcy filing wasn't just about control. It was an attempt to shift blame, make Pinnacle the scapegoat for money that disappeared elsewhere. In the back row, Grandma Eleanor sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her eyes filled as she watched, pride and sadness mixing on her face. She had seen the family's flaws up close for decades, but seeing me stand against them brought a quiet strength to her face. The judge listened without interrupting, face growing more serious with each slide. When Valerie finished, he spoke to Gregory directly. "Counsel, this court does not appreciate being used as a tool in personal or financial scheming, especially when it risks disrupting a major public project." Gregory tried to respond, but his voice lacked confidence. Trevor stared at the table, hands clenched. My father looked suddenly older, the confident mask slipping. The atmosphere had shifted completely. What started as their show was unraveling thread by thread. The judge set down the exhibits carefully. The real reckoning was about to begin. When the judge brought down the gavel for the final ruling, the entire courtroom fell dead silent. Judge Harlan Brooks spoke with measured authority. This court finds the involuntary bankruptcy petition was filed in bad faith, supported by unproven claims and evidence of improper conduct. The petition is dismissed with prejudice, meaning no refiling of these accusations will ever be allowed. A collective exhale moved through the gallery. Reporters stopped typing for a moment, taking in the weight. The judge continued, "Furthermore, given the serious issues raised about document authenticity, unauthorized access to private information, and possible interference with a major public development contract, the clerk is directed to send the full record, including all exhibits and transcripts, to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for review of possible fraud and corporate spying violations." My father's face drained of color. Trevor gripped the table edge, knuckles white. My mother buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. But this time, there was no performance left. The consequences unfolded quickly in the months that followed. Federal investigators moved fast. Trevor and my father faced charges that could mean prison time, big fines running into millions, and permanent loss of their real estate licenses in Texas. The Ellis Group's reputation in Dallas circles collapsed. Partners pulled out. Deals dried up. Invitations stopped coming. What had been a well-known name in local business became tied to scandal. I watched it from a distance, no longer part of that world. Outside the courthouse that day, the harsh sun felt different, cleansing somehow. Grandma Eleanor waited for me near the steps, her eyes red but shining with pride. I walked straight to her and wrapped her in the longest hug we'd ever shared. "Thank you," I whispered. "You were the only one who ever believed in me when it mattered most." She held me tighter. "I've always known you were special, sweetheart. You proved them all wrong today." We stood there for a long time, the noise of leaving reporters fading around us. Later that week, I made the decision final: no more contact with my parents or Trevor. No explanations, no second chances. The betrayal had been too complete, too planned. I changed numbers, updated security rules at the office, and focused forward. From the money earned from the Texas redevelopment contract, now fully protected and moving ahead, I started the Ellis Family Justice Fund. It wasn't about keeping the name for glory. It was about turning it into something meaningful. The fund provides scholarships for young people from difficult family situations, free legal help for those facing unfair treatment at home, and temporary housing support for teens who need a safe place to rebuild. I wanted to help kids who grew up feeling like outsiders in their own families, the ones dismissed or treated unfairly, the ones who needed someone to say, "Your ideas matter. You can build your own path." Greed and jealousy can tear even the wealthiest families apart from the inside. I saw it happen firsthand, how the chase for control and cover-up destroyed what little connection remained. But pain doesn't have to be the end. I chose to take mine and turn it into hope for others, giving them tools I wished I'd had earlier, resources, guidance, a chance to stand strong without looking back. That's the legacy I build now, one project, one supported life at a time.